7 o'clock, I call this meeting of the Crew Town Council to order. Please join me with a moment of silence.
Mayor, could I ask that we remember the family of Ronnie Dalton and Joe?
Yes, ma'am, you may. We also need to remember the family of Clyde Shelton, who's also lost one this week.
Walter Wilson.
Walter Wilson's. Well, Walter was one of our remaining World War II heroes. All right, please join with me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Joe Marshall died.
Who?
Joe Marshall.
I didn't know Joe died. When that happened?
I saw it this morning, saw it this evening.
Joe Marshall was a postal
Postal guy, yeah.
Right, that'll be for long.
88 years old.
The recorder work.
Oh,
I think you have. A red light.
okay, all right, yeah, I'm good. All right, good. Perfect.
Tiffany, we don't have any handouts tonight?
Yes, ma'am, right here.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
He's
I didn't
posted
see
this
it.
normal.
Thank you.
I think you call it normal.
Before we get into the delegations from the public, we have a special presentation. I'll turn it over to the Vice Mayor Instant.
I want to thank Al Simpson for the wonderful paint job that he did in our conference room here. I especially point out that he's quite an artiste. He was able to go around the mural and freshen that up without causing any damage to the mural. And I think he had some help maybe, but they took down the historic railroad pictures and were able to get those.
fall, you blame Rod.
Okay. But,
You don't want to screw them up, not me.
that's more information than we probably need. But Al, I want everyone to realize that Al donated his time and was very economical. He didn't use very much paint, I don't think.
It was under budget.
Way under budget. Half, we budgeted 500 and it was only 250 something, 3 or something. So Al, thank you so much for your service.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. We have a little token of our appreciation. A very small token, but we really
Will you
appreciate it.
give me what was on the budget?
Not quite, sorry. Not quite.
Thank you, Al. All right, at this time we'll go into the delegations from the public and citizens' comments. Do we have any delegations from the public or citizens' comments?
We always do, don't we?
Well,
I just would like an update on what is being done to deal with the people that don't clean up their yards at all. Like, we still have a house over at 301
yes, ma'am, that's a very good question.
with a piano.
Let me tell you what is happening. The town manager is working very closely with the chief of police. The chief of police is working, or rather vice versa, they're working very closely together, and they're systematically addressing each of these issues as they come up. And in fact, I was in the office this week, and they were discussing that particular issue, and they were identifying some places. So what you're seeing now is enforcement, or slowly but surely.
Very slowly, because that one's been there a year.
The boat's gone.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Had you noticed?
I hadn't, because I've been out of town
And the
part of the
pool's
time.
down.
And the pool is
And
down.
there's
And the car's
6
gone.
bags of junk in black
Okay,
bags ready for
Good,
pickup.
okay, but, you know, a whole year is a really long time.
Well, I think some of those have been there more than a year, but
Well, I'm giving it a year.
That's not the only one, Susan.
I understand, but it's,
They're working one-on-one.
But they're addressing, the bottom line is they're systematically, the town manager and the chief of police are working together to systematically address this issue.
okay, so there is a game plan.
Yes, ma'am, there is a game plan. It's being executed as we speak.
Very good. Okay. Because it's spring and now the wash bucket people are gonna come alive again and, you know, so we're gonna get more into this stuff again, right? And, you know, so.
Yes,
Cool.
ma'am. Okay. Anybody else? All right, good deal. We move on to the consent calendar. The consent calendar, or matters on the consent calendar considered routine and will be approved by one motion. Any item can be removed from the calendar at the request of a member of council and may be voted on separately. You have in the minutes of the town council meeting of 12 March 2018, the bill sheet and the additions. I don't know if you've had a chance to look at the additions.
Yeah. Make a motion to accept it.
Finance Committee Chair makes a motion that they be accepted. Second. Second. Mr. Reed. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed by like sign. Okay, motion carries. We now have the town manager's report. The town manager is out. He has the flu. He will not be with us, so I'll read his report. And I'll just read it verbatim. He says, "We currently have completed all preliminary work on the upcoming budget with all known anticipated expenses and revenues entered into the draft. Any specific needs of department heads have been discussed and accounted for, with the exception of some requests from the police department and one large request from Public Works. These items can be discussed in an upcoming budget work session. As of this draft, we are positive, rather that he proposes a budget work session be held on Monday, April 23rd, and at a designated time. And what we have agreed on is 5 o'clock on Monday, the 23rd, for a budget work session right here. Any revisions or adjustments can be made then, and we can move forward to advertise for budget presentation and approval at a regular council meeting in June. The Department of Aviation conducted an inspection at the airport this past Friday to verify trees had been removed and landowners had received compensation. Everything was in good condition, and we will wait for their findings and release of any flight restrictions currently on the airport. Our next project at the airport will be to crack fill and repair the runway. Everything is in place for the DMV stop program, where we will be placing holds on persons' ability to renew their licenses with DMV due to unpaid property taxes. Our next step is a notice to be placed in the paper about the program and when we will start issuing stops. Individual letters must be sent to anyone who has unpaid property tax, giving them a deadline as to when we will place a hold on their license renewal. The notices and letters will be mailed this month. A contractor will be in town this week to replace a line stop on the water line on Moncure Avenue. Once the line stop is in, the new water main will be installed by town forces, and eventually all services will be connected to the new line. The old line will remain, but will no longer be in service. A heat and air system has been installed at the town hall, and apparently it's doing well. Window replacement needs council approval. Now, couple of items. On the, you want to discuss the?
No, we can do that.
Okay, we'll discuss the windows now. I'll turn it over to finance.
Well, the Finance Committee had a meeting on was Tuesday, Monday or Tuesday, I think. And we discussed them, they looked at the bids, and we're gonna, gave the bid to Wonder World of Richmond, and it was for an amount of $18,378. This has got the gas, the argon gas in it. It's got a lifetime warranty, and what we really looked at was really the warranty on it, because the warranty is if somebody throws a rock in, they replace the window. So we felt like that was the best bid, and from what Tiffany has told me, they're supposed to be down Wednesday, and to measure the windows, and they're asking for at least half of the what it's going to cost to replace them. And I'd like to make a motion that we approve the total amount, which is $18,378.
Okay, so Mr. Knight has made a motion. Is there any further discussion? Do we have a second? I'll second. At this time, we have a motion and a second for vinyl replacement windows, a bid of $18,378 from Window World of Richmond. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed by like sign.
And on the other hand, these people are going to wrap the windows too. So everything's going to be taken care of. And the windows that are in there have to be disposed of in the landfill because they have lead paint in them.
Very good. Very good. Thank you, Mr. Knight. There's one other item that we did not get into the mayor's report. Apparently last month we were supposed to adopt the Commonwealth Regional Hazard Mitigation Plan. This has been prepared by the Nottaway County Planning Commission. Each of the towns have to approve it. But what this does is make us compliant with all state laws regarding our response to issue. I haven't read it. I just saw it tonight. This was prepared again by the county planning folks, and this is just one of the things that we have to adopt. I'll read the resolution. Whereas the town of Crewe is vulnerable to an array of hazards that can cause loss of life and damage to public and private property. And whereas the town desires to seek ways to mitigate situations that may aggravate such circumstances, and the development and implementation of a hazard mitigation plan can result in actions that reduce the long-term risk to life and property from hazards. And whereas the town is covered under a regional hazard mitigation plan that outlines ways to protect its citizens and property from the effects of hazards in accordance with Section 322 of the Robert T. Stafford Disaster Relief and Emergency Assistance Act. And whereas that plan must be reviewed and updated every 5 years for the town to remain in compliance with Section 322 of the Robert T. Stafford Disaster Relief and Emergency Assistance Act, and to remain eligible for certain types of federal assistance in the event of a disaster affecting the town. Whereas the Commonwealth Regional Council has undertaken an update of the Regional Hazard Mitigation Plan, which includes Crewe, with input from the appropriate local and state officials. And whereas citizens have been afforded an opportunity to comment and provide input in the plan and the actions in the plan. And whereas the Virginia Department of Emergency Management and Federal Emergency Management Agency have reviewed an updated hazard mitigation plan for legislative compliance and have approved the plan pending the completion of local adoption procedures. Now therefore, be it resolved that the Town Council for the Town of Crewe hereby adopts the updated CRC Regional Hazard Mitigation Plan as applicable to the town and agrees to take such official actions as reasonably necessary and as available resources allow to carry out the proposed actions in the plan.
Mayor, was anyone in town, either the town manager or the police chief, consulted in the,
I don't know.
writing the plan?
I don't know. This was a county initiative,
Right.
and my guess is they merely just changed the dates and updated what they had before. Now, with that in mind, it's funny this should come up because I'm putting out an informal census in the paper this week. I'm asking for information. It's not a taxpayer expense, I'm paying for it. Asking to see if there's folks out there willing to volunteer, to give their time and effort and energies to the town of Crewe on a volunteer basis as needed. And one of the things I was thinking about when I was developing that was, one of the challenges, let's put it this way, one of the challenges that we have is that it takes so much training now just to be able to be a firefighter. I mean, back in the old days, all you had to do was volunteer, show up, learn how to work a hose, and you were a firefighter. Now there's weeks and months of training. Same thing with emergency services on the emergency squads point beside the house. It would be nice if we had a local group that we could call on periodically, that we could give some basic training to, that if we had an event that overwhelmed our emergency services, that we could call on them. People that have experienced prior, older firefighters, for example, or ex-military personnel that bring in some skill sets that we could use. One of the things that we do need to be aware of is that railroad brings a lot of stuff through. Most of you don't keep up with terrorism, I'm sure, but I do. And one of the things that came out several months ago in the ISIS magazine was a full article on how to derail trains and how to sabotage trains, and they were trying to get lone wolf operators out there into the basically lone wolf activities to disrupt our rail traffic. And that got me to thinking, you know, what would we do if we had an emergency? We don't have enough police, fire department, or emergency service personnel. We need additional bodies we can call on if we need to. And so I've included that, and part of that basically is from this. I've also asked, by the way, how many people use Facebook. I'm kind of curious how many people in the town of Crewe use Facebook. You know, is that a good form of communication based on our discussion? But no, to the best of my knowledge.
Okay,
Yeah.
I asked because when you do emergency operations planning, the plans themselves are only as good as the process used in developing them. So planning efforts aren't so much focused on the plan that sits on a shelf and checking off the check boxes. It's focused on bringing stakeholders together and thinking about emergency management and developing the culture of emergency management. I don't know if I'm comfortable with the process.
Okay.
From what all I've heard, they've got a checklist that they go through. They've got an emergency response team that checks in when something happens and stuff like that. We discussed it some in the meeting we had in Nottaway with Back
Oh, months ago.
yeah. But you know, they look like they're on top of it, and John Proside is pretty much the one heading it up, as far as I know, along with
The folks that-
Logan and the Hagen.
Whatever's here meets state standards. Now, does that translate into a real world?
I can't something to it. I think we had a meeting at Fort Pickens, I can't remember how long ago it was, but it was about that right there. And we had police, fire, whole bunch of people out there. We went over that, filled out questionnaires about it.
Okay, so you did have input then?
Yes,
Okay.
we discussed what's in the book right there.
Okay. All right, with that in mind, what I would recommend is that we go ahead and approve the resolution, but there's no reason that we can't convene some of us that have an interest or experience in this and sit down and kind of look at it a little harder.
I think we can do both.
Okay.
So I'll make the motion to approve.
All right, we have a motion to approve, Mr. Green.
Second.
And we have a second from Mr. Reed. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed by like sign. Motion carries. All right, good deal. That covers the town manager's report, town attorney's report.
Yes, thank you. One big agenda item is that we do need to have a public hearing pursuant to Virginia Code 15.2 1800 prior to the closing of the sale of any real property. And so I'm requesting the council's permission tonight to advertise for the sale. I don't know the details or anything like that to see if it needs to be something done quicker, but if you all just approve the advertisement for a public hearing, I can coordinate the rest of those details.
Okay,
And other than that, just going along with everything else.
okay. Let's save that action for after the executive session, because I just need to brief everyone. Basically, we've got a contract, and I can brief you all on the executive session. So we have proposed contract as well. Anything else?
That's all.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Mayor's report. During discussions of the Finance Committee last week, the need for a new roof on the old firehouse was identified. And I know we want to develop the old firehouse. Several folks have discussed that and brought that up. And I'm of the opinion, and I have not put in an application yet, but I'm of the opinion that we meet a historic designation for the state of Virginia, which might free up some money. And that is on my list of things to do. I'll take that for action. What I would like to request council to do, though, is authorize the town manager to solicit bids for the roof so we can get it repaired, because once a roof goes, everything.
Well, that's on the flat roof on the back part of the fire. It's not the slate roof that he's talking about.
Okay. So at this time, I would need a motion.
I mean, so moved.
All right, second. Do we have any discussion?
I've already contacted one roofer about coming up giving us a price on it.
Okay.
And, then we'll go through the bid process on that,
Yeah.
on what it's gonna cost us, and you're looking at pretty pricey.
Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. All opposed, by like sign. All right. Budget work session. Town manager's report pretty much covered the budget work session. We'll hold it on the 23rd of April at 1700. Now, I want to thank Councilman Miskovic for putting a couple of talking papers together that he has passed out. It's on capital investments and capital budgeting and budgeting basics. What is a budget? And what I want you to do is take these home and review them at your leisure. One of the things that we want to think about is not just our annual expenses, but our long-term expenses. We know we're gonna need a new fire truck, we know we wanna develop. Garbage truck, I'm sorry, need a new garbage truck, we know we wanna, we gotta pay for the roof, we know we're gonna have to do the fire, towers again, or the water tower again. We know we wanna develop the firehouse, we need to work that, and preserve it. That can become a good meeting place as well as a community, place, for the town, and maybe provide some additional office space for other forces if we need to have them there. And in theory, it could become an emergency operations center if we had to set up one. Okay? With that in mind, I want you to think, if you had a wish list, a Christmas wish list, write out everything that you want with an estimated budget, why you think we need it, and a brief paragraph, nothing long. Now let's put it together in that list and start racking and stacking, and that way we've got it available to us when money comes available that we can pursue additional stuff. All right, and just have us together by the 23rd, and
When are you planning on putting that thing together so you can get that as a historical?
this week, if I can.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that's my game plan. I may have to do some more research.
Yeah.
Just a quick question
Yes.
about that, with the historical designation won't prevent any renovations of it.
My understanding is you cannot change the character of the outside of the building.
Okay.
As far as the inside goes, I don't know.
Okay.
But that's something we have to check out. And again, that's something, I'm not gonna submit it without your approval anyway, but I can get the package together. Okay. For the request of a council member, I sent a letter to the Nottaway County School Board regarding the graduation. That's in your packet. We all received an email from Dodger Harrison of Crew asking if the town had any plans to have the decorated fire hydrants photographed before any of them are repainted. And I have not replied to that, figuring that members of council probably ought to make their voices heard if they want to get somebody to go around and take pictures of all the fire hydrants.
Is it gonna get repainted plain or fancy again?
Well, the objective the council had expressed earlier was just have them repainted as people wanted them, but we do have to paint the tops a certain color because of the pressure. Apparently, there's a color code that shows you for each fire hydrant how much pressure water that comes out. That color code tells the firemen, and they know how to hook up the right hose for that nozzle.
You had said something to me, Ann, about the wash bucket taking that project on. We're meeting this Thursday. So, and I think you were talking about repainting them fun, which is, I think, kind of a really fun thing.
Well,
I
it's
know
kind of a brand for the town.
Absolutely. We're meeting Thursday. I don't think you'll be here, no, but something I can bring up at the meeting and see if we can, the wash bucket people can maybe oversee that and
Okay.
take
I
that.
thought about that some more, and when they were painted before, when they had the contest before, it was in the rules to leave the top, but it got not followed in
Carried
that
away.
case.
But that's easy enough to resolve. That's an
And,
easy
you know,
resolve.
and that's what I thought, that as those are, and if it comes about that people adopt them and do it, then someone follow along behind and make sure the top is what it's supposed to be.
Gotcha. Okay, well, maybe I can get with somebody and
Yeah.
we can maybe discuss that. Okay.
All right, with that in mind, I suggest we do nothing then until you've had a chance to meet and see if you got.
We can advise him that there were note cards that were for sale at Rose Patch that depicted and I meant to bring them tonight, but.
Yeah, I actually have a set at my house. So
Yeah,
they're really
there
nice.
were some, and I don't know, she's sold out and then she finds a few more, I don't know, but there are some around that depict the winners, I think.
He sent that email to all of us. Do you want to respond to it then?
And after I find the note cards, in case he wants to look at them.
I'll give you a call later. I'll talk to Lynn.
That'd be fine.
Okay.
The Vice Mayor action. And
Okay, I'll answer. I started to answer him, but I did, like you, I wanted to wait.
Now, when you say you're gonna undertake that project, is that y'all gonna paint all the, or should we, Because they made a contest out of it last time, and I think a lot of kids in the school took, you know.
See, I don't know how it was done last time, so I think what would be best, I know that Ann had approached me, and I approached the group, and it kind of got dropped there, so if I just talk to somebody, let's see what you guys want, we can try to, I think there's no reason why we couldn't work towards helping
You know,
decorate
and my
those
thought was, we
bagels
don't
up.
have to do it exactly the way it was done before, we don't have, you know, we
Right,
can look
exactly,
at
they
it
can
and
just
see what's,
repaint it,
what's
refurb
workable.
Paint them red, like it's, you know, and then with the color code the top, you know,
What's
once they do a
workable
flow
at this
test on
time.
it.
Or, yeah, whatever, and so I'll bring it before the group on Thursday, and then I'll try to get with you maybe before, because I don't know how it was done before, so I need to.
Well, and Kim at Rose Patch can be very helpful, because
She
she
can
does,
be.
she knows how it was done.
Okay, Phil, is that okay?
Okay.
Well, he's part of the group, so.
Yeah.
We may just want to get a list of all the fire hydrants.
That's where I got stalled.
Okay. And between that and, well, I mean, even if we just have an officer as he's walking up and down the streets to write down. But then, I mean, having a sign-up list at homecoming in another month.
Yeah.
Good point. Now, the run is different this year, it's on the 5th,
That's
right?
So was it kids that did it last time, or was it?
It was just citizens
Okay.
adopted a fire hydrant.
Okay.
So some were kids, some were just
Because
businesses.
I can
some
think of
were-
some really neat teenagers here in town, high schoolers, that I think would be real interested in participating in something like that, so. Yeah,
All right.
kind of cool to get them interested, right?
Mhm.
Yes, ma'am, it was a big community thing. I mean, somebody came and painted my fire hydrant before I had a chance.
Well, you need to be serviced too.
Yeah.
You need to take them off and grease them, put them back on, because, you know,
Probably
Isn't that the fire department's responsibility?
no.
It's a town responsibility.
would probably be better to service them before they get painted.
Yeah, that's what I think. Okay, well, we can talk about
Okay, and then I've included in your package a World War II anniversary note. This is April the 9th, and in 1942, a town fell. And we had two crew and Burkeville people there. Charles G. Mortimer, who was married to Effie Moore, daughter of Mrs. J.R. Moore, crew. I did not know that family. But he was actually from California, but on his POW roster, he was listed as being from crew. And then Jack Bradshaw, Burkeville, was captured at Corregidor a month later. And I just thought as we were in the 75th anniversary period that we probably ought to remember these folks in some form or fashion. All right, with that in mind, unless there's any questions for me, we'll move on to committee reports. Very good. Infrastructure Committee. Mr. Sisk is not here. Mr. Knight, Mr. Foss, Mr. Miskowitz.
The only thing we got, that I would notice Stevie would have would probably be the fire, the firehouse, get bids on that.
Okay. Finance Committee, we've discussed and that took action on the model replacement windows. Did you have anything else? Personnel Committee.
No report.
Volunteer Services Committee.
Yeah, I just want to report one thing, that the Chamber's in the process of trying to locate a visitors center. We feel that it's important to the town, so when people come in, they can get various information about what's in town and the surrounding areas. So that's a project that we're undertaking now.
How much space is the chamber looking for?
Just a room. We have we have one in mind already that has volunteered, but we're waiting. We want to approach someone else first.
Have you seen the mayor's office?
Yeah,
Is that big enough?
sure it is.
Okay. All right, let me, I don't know what all's in there, but I seldom use it. I'm usually, if I have something to do, I usually end up at the town manager.
All right,
So,
I'll talk to you.
okay, all right. Economic Development Committee.
Just a few brief items. I mentioned at the last meeting about applying for the VFHY grant. Unfortunately, our grant writer was unavailable, so I wrote it myself and turned it in. We'll hear back within another month or so. Excuse me. We'll have a HEAL meeting, Friday here at 1 o'clock. And, as the mayor mentioned before, the second annual 5K run is scheduled for May the 5th. I personally haven't been running as frequently as I used to, so someone can claim the second place, or have a better chance of it this year.
I haven't been walking as much either, so.
How about a wheelchair race?
Yeah.
That's all I have, Mayor.
What's 5K?
He's not old enough.
3.2.
3.2 miles. I'll try it just to challenge myself.
There you go.
On continuing business, eliminate items A and B, those were leftovers from the previous.
Good.
Yeah. Is there any continuing business or anything about?
Just, real quick, any, comments on the beautification committee plan? What quick, right? If not, we can wait another month.
Okay. I thought we were gonna engage the wash bucket initiative.
That's right, we were going to do that, okay, thank you,
Right,
right,
okay.
perfect.
All right. Do we have any new business? No new business. Points of personal privilege, Mr. Miskovic.
Well, as Vice Mayor Stinson said earlier, we can all remember the family of Ronnie Dalton. He provided a great service to the town in providing fresh food and fresh fruit, produce and meats and such with that there. So, great loss to the town.
Mr. Abel.
We'll bring up a road sign again, ain't people on the street wanna know when we're gonna put the Guy Avenue sign back up.
Yes, I have brought that up to town manager, and the problem is that we can't get street signs like that anymore. So what we would have to do, if we got a new street sign, it would be a newer, modern type of thing, and would basically be not consistent with the rest of the town. So do we replace everything in town for one street sign? I don't know.
We talked about that, but it's costly.
It is costing. It is costing.
I just had some people on the street asking.
I have somebody I live very close to that pinged me on multiple occasions. She's said something.
We can't find someone to make a one-off sign that looks just like all the others?
I don't know.
If you did, it would cost you a fortune.
Costs less than buying all new signs.
For real.
True. Okay. What's tonight? Ms. Stenson,
Nothing.
Mr. Foss,
Nothing.
Mr. Reed. Very good. At this time, we move back into our public comment portion. We have no public comments. With that in mind, then I need a motion to adjourn into executive session consistent with Virginia State Code 2.2-3711, A, subsection for property and prospective business, which would be 3 and 5.
So moved.
Personnel too.
Yes, it's personnel too, yes, good point. So one, what is that? Yeah, 2, 3, and 5. All right, so Mr. Reed made the motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. We have a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, I like sign. All right.